Counselor Accents Podcast. Two school counselors who love their jobs. Oh, and they happen to have Southern accents too. Bless their hearts.
I'm Kim Crowley. Oh, I thought I got to go first this time.
Okay, you go first.
I get to ride in the front seat.
Great.
It's my turn.
Okay.
I'm Kim Crumley.
I'm Laura Rancorn.
And together we are Counselor Accents.
We have chased
finally on.
We have chased this man around, and it reminded me of my high school days when I would chase everyone around and no one responded, except he did respond.
Well, what could he do? I felt like it would become the creepy level.
It was either this or a restraining order, and he decided to join us on a podcast. And we're
Yeah, we made an arrangement. So
after this, we will not contact you. I believe that's what the arrangement was. This is it.
There'll be a cease and assist after this.
that's correct.
But we discovered Brent Cosby at a local state conference. I discovered him first. Let me just say that. And I told you, oh my goodness, you have to come with me to his session. We hunted him down the next year, and you didn't understand why until you came to the session with me. And were you not blown away?
We were getting ready to speak for ASCA, and we had like a small window to get set up and be ready. And you said, I do not care. We're going to hear him.
Yep.
And we laughed so hard at your session, and it was so fast paced, and it was so practical.
We laughed at his, it was on purpose that we laughed. It wasn't like we were sitting in the audience laughing, ridiculing.
But he is he's humorous and fast paced. So if you've never heard him speak, anywhere you can, he is so amazing. So we're so honored to have you on, Brent. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about who you are and what you do.
Well, you've already mentioned that I'm ADHD and I'm DMB.
We said it nicely.
Is that the way it works? Okay. I tell everybody I have ADHD because I'm in high def all the time. So that comes to your fast-paced modality there. But to tell you a little bit about me, I live in deep South Alabama called Andalusia. And I have 4 boys that are grown and a grandchild. I've been working for a children's psychiatric hospital in the state of Alabama now for about 20 years. Prior to that, in mental health, I work with special needs adults and children and just have a passion for helping. I do have a private counseling practice in Andalusia and a few other things that I do. In case you're in the market for a used vehicle, I can get with it. I mean, look, you got to have a lot of irons in the fire. You did hear that I have 4 kids and a grandkid, right? So it takes a lot of extra. And so
I want to tell you what I heard, and you just sense it coming off of you, this energy level. I can't imagine you trying to I don't think there would be enough stuff for you to be doing, because I just feel like you're all the time.
It's somebody mentioned one time that it's like watching a lightning bolt and trying to catch it. And I can't figure, I understand it because that's the way I feel. I have high levels of energy all the time, which I travel a lot in the States, so you need a lot of energy to be able to drive. So when you're traveling 4,000 and 5,000 miles per month, among doing other things, you got to have a lot in reserve. So, but anyway. That's a nutshell about me. There's not much to tell. I'm kind of an open book that has 1 chapter. So
I have to know, because you know how did you end up in the mental health realm? How did you end up in that area?
Well, I loved my counselor when I was a kid. No, I'm just kidding. That's just true. That's not true. I didn't like her at all. But anyway, I don't know. I went to school at Troy University, so hopefully that's not giving them a bad rep today by mentioning that. But I had a friend of mine that wanted me to take a class with her called Introduction to Human Services. And we kind of went over the whole gamut of social work and rehabilitation and that whole area of development. I said, hey, I kind of like this. And the more I liked it, the more I dug into it like anything else. And I started off my first job out of Troy working with special needs adults in Greenville, Alabama. And absolutely loved it, have a passion for it. And then I was called to work with children, and I absolutely fought that, and I ran from that for about 3 years. And finally grabbed a hold of my coattails, and the rest is kind of history. I had to go back and get a grad degree in counseling and psychology in order to make some of those things come to fruition. So, like I said, I ran for a long time, and finally got called. And then the company that I'm working for now, they have allowed me to be able to expand my horizons a little bit. And they said, Brent, go do what you want to do. I'm like, well, I like going to the beach. So, they said, while you're at the beach, do something else. And so I created this community service aspect whereby I can do professional development activities, as well as go into schools, do bullying, substance abuse, suicide prevention. The goal of the facility I work for is prevention. Let's make sure that we promote positive things in the community instead of just taking advantage of. So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Well, you are so busy. You've got a lot of irons in the fire, like we talked about, and so we just appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today on our podcast.
No, I've been looking forward to it for a long time. This is going to make us all famous. I'm expecting it.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to be in the top 10 of most podcasts ever listened to ever. So
listen, my mom and Kim's mom are going to be your biggest fans. Those are that's our main audience, and they're going to love you.
So, so when I promote this on my Facebook page, then there'll be 4 people that'll be watching. Okay, so. Yeah.
Oh my
goodness. The session that we attended that we still haven't stopped talking about is your session on your toolbox, and mainly thinking about individual counseling. And I think that that's an area where school counselors kind of panic a little bit. We can have a curriculum for small groups. We can have lessons for guided whole group lessons. But when it comes to individual counseling, you really don't know what's about to walk through the door. So you have to be equipped and ready for anything. So talk to us a little bit about how you developed your toolbox presentation, and just let's talk about that for a little bit.
Well, we can say trial and error would be a very good start. Basically, all the techniques and tips, either I have read about them, modified them, created them. So I don't take credit for 150% of them, but I modify and make it mine, if that makes any sense. It's like the very first slide I talk about in both parts of that training is my theory of counseling, and it's one of those little life dinghies or a life jacket. That's my philosophy. I can give it to you and give you all the tools you need to float, but it's going to be your choice whether you wear it. So I start with that and then progress into other things. And I kept thinking, here we are, being the ADHD person that I am, working with children. When I first started, I was working in an outpatient setting. I did an inpatient or an outpatient day treatment, and I also did intervention in schools. So I learned a whole new appreciation for school counselors and school educators. Let me say that. I worked with some of the very best in the very beginning of my career that gave me tons and tons of ideas that from an educational perspective that I modified into a counseling and clinical model. So for example, doing things with a ballpoint pen, I had to have objects that were readily accessible, readily available, that children would be able to identify with. My main theory of counseling, or my practice in counseling, is to utilize things that people have access to every day, things that they come in contact with every day, such as a ballpoint pen. And I break that down in one of my sessions as talking about children with anger, for example. The ink is what you show on the outside. That's your screaming, your yelling, your cursing, your whatever is taking place in a school setting. And then I talk to the child about what's going on with the spring, which is what triggers them and springs them into action to show the world what all these nasty things are. The whole of the pen is who I am. That's my body, and I protect all those things that are inside of it. But yet the little bitty tip on the end is what triggers. So I talk about triggers and what builds up the energy with the spring, and then what you show. So my theory is that after we get through doing some individual type sessions, the child goes back into an environment where they click that ballpoint pen and they're reminded, my anger, my anger, my anger. I don't need to show the world everything that's inside of me right now. The same thing with using your sense of smell. Your sense of smell is your number one memory recaller. So I use a lot of things like coffee beans and all those beautiful smells that you can do plug-ins with, and we kind of decorate offices that way. But it all started basically when I came out of school. No discredit to Troy. Troy did a phenomenal job teaching me the foundations of being a counselor. But the one thing that I lacked coming out was the actual techniques that I needed to keep an ADHD child at bay at home. And what should I tell a mom whose child is depressed in the evening times more so than the morning times? What can I utilize in order to help this child become more successful in all areas of their life? And I was kind of lacking on some of those things. Since then, I think Troy and other universities in particular have created curriculums that address those issues now. But I'm old school, y'all. I'm 948 years old. So we had to make it up as we went. So, but yeah, it kind of started with having to, basically starting from, you hear the term being baptized by fire. Brent was baptized by fire. I had zero experience, and here's your 20 people on a caseload. Go do it. I'm like, do what? And the very first session I had as a professional counselor, a 7-year-old girl disclosed sexual abuse. And I was not prepared for that as a young counselor, nor is anyone for the first time that they hear that. So I've developed techniques since then. When you hear those things, those dramatic, astounding things for the first time, how are you supposed to react? What are we supposed to do next? What's our protocol? And I do that a lot in my trainings with schools because it's difficult to come up with an individualized curriculum or an individualized program to address what looks like a shotgun approach of needs.
Right.
There's a lot going on today than there was when I was in school. And I'm sure 5 years from now, it'll be even more tremendous because teachers are not dealing with the same student anymore. They're not dealing with a child that has mom and dad that just divorced and what have you. They're dealing with long-term DNA issues of, fill in the blank. They're dealing with peer pressures that are abnormal because of social media. And they're dealing with things that we didn't have to deal with growing up. So we have more suicide attempts, more completed suicides. We have bullying that is exacerbated. It is on a totally different scale now. Because I used to be able to get off the bus at home and I'm done with my bully for at least another 12 hours. And with social media, you're never away from them. So we're dealing with different children today, different styles of growth, but different world.
Kim, I want to shout amen. I want to collect an offering. I don't know. Brent, you are our...
I'm going to the altar.
Let's go to the altar right now. That's good. Let's do a GoFundMe page. Is that what the podcast is for?
It's really not a podcast. This is just our free way of getting help.
Gotcha.
I think I had an aha moment, Laura, listening to Brent. You know what's different about Brent is in our world of counseling, and I don't mean any disrespect because I love counselors. I'm in this business, but so many people are up here, and I just feel like Brent is so practical and so relatable, and just there's nothing pie in the sky. It's just this. So your ideas are so simple.
Simple was the word I was going to use. Yeah,
but yet so doable, so practical for everyday counselors. But when you're talking about, my mind just went into when you're talking about the changes that we've seen in students, because I've been in education a long time and I've been a counselor long enough to really what I saw at the beginning and what I'm seeing now has completely changed. But I've tried to wrap my head around this and I don't know, and I want your take on this. I have dealt with poverty, like that is a ministry my family was in, and then I went into school counseling, And so I've dealt with that, this group of poverty, but it's on a different level now. It's on a scarier level. And I don't know if it's because they're generations down from it, or if it is all this external stuff. You know what I'm saying? I meant,
Right.
do you think?
Well, there's so much truth there that I did a presentation. It was back in early last year about this time. And it was one of the last ones I did before the pandemic had occurred. And it was in a very impoverished school in Alabama, which is a lot of schools in Alabama.
Yeah.
And the speech that I love to give more than anything else is, you're the generation that can change this. All it takes is one action. Your thoughts are just seconds away from actions, and actions change the next generation. And I go into explaining more about how I'm the first person in my family to graduate college. Now, that's not tapping Brent on the back. That's me wanting to change a generation, because I was in the seat of these kids that there are no plants in the area. There's a dollar store to work at and one gas station. You have to drive 40 miles in any direction just to be able to find anything that resembles a Walmart. So these kids are growing up in areas where mom and dad say, well, it's okay if you do this. And I'm telling them it's not okay. I go against the grain when it comes to a lot of cultural beliefs in certain areas that we're talking about that are impoverished. You're intelligent. You can read a book. We can find you a method. Just don't get that pipe dream of I'm the star athlete, D1 scholarship, and all these things. Let's use your brain. We can use our talent second. But I preach that to all these kids everywhere that I go, that you are the one that can change for your whole family and for the next generation. And a lot of kids like to hear it. And I know I'm a nutball, but I give every kid my phone number when I get done. I tell them, text me, call me, something. I said, if you have no one else to talk to in your life, I said, call me and I'll deal with you. I'll work with you and I'll do what I need to do. I said, but I realize that there are a lot of children that have, they don't have that go-to person, as I call it, in their life. And one school in particular, I did a suicide education program for them. It was a large 6A school. And before I finished my first of 2 programs on suicide prevention, I had 137 texts and 39 missed phone calls before I even finished the first session. So it's telling, and I answered every one of them. We went having 4 of those children admitted into the hospital that I worked for, and the rest I scattered out in counselors across the area. But there is a tremendous, tremendous need, and poverty plays a big role in this. Sometimes we feel like we're stuck on that old Alabama dirt road on red clay, and we're just spinning. And so my options are, when I finish school, if there's nothing for me to do here, so you see a higher dropout rate. And I'm like, no, let's find a way to save these kids. We can see where they're falling behind, and we can see where these kids need help earlier on. Some of my favorite people in the state I love visiting are probation officers, because I have friends that are probation officers that have 100% of their caseload in counseling. If everything were okay, they would probably not be on probation. So let's get some counseling, let's get some help, and let's move them forward, because otherwise they're going to be stuck on that old muddy dirt road. And they're going to wind up staying exactly where they are, doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result in 5 years. So we have to find a way to identify these kids early. Poverty is one of those that's an early identifier. So you can also deal with your children's policy councils in your state too, in your county. Each county has a children's policy council whereby you can address these needs, and you can write grants to address these needs if you have a higher teen pregnancy rate, or you see that smoking and vaping are on the rise with your 5th through 7th graders. There are things we can do. So when we see these triggers that are causing these, well, I'm not going to say abnormalities in our social system, but if you see something that's going to cause a differential shift in our social structure, well, then that's when we need to start working on it at that point. It's like the best advice I was ever given in my life. It's crazy. It's one of those things that kind of hang with you. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. And a lot of our kids look at me like I'm speaking French, and I'm like, take it and see where it goes. Some roads go to the best places ever. Some are just temporary happiness roads. And then in that road will fork again too. And let's keep taking those forks. I mean, you know, it's like I make jokes about my family tree being a telephone pole, you know, go straight up. But somewhere at the end, you know, take it. I mean, sorry about that.
No, absolutely. My brain is just, you are amazing. You are amazing to listen to. Now I know why we love to hear him. Please tell me you have publications, books. What?
Well, now you know the answer to
work
that.
on.
You know the answer to that. I have 4 books that I'm working on, which I'll never finish any of them because of my disorder. Okay. I figured I would put all 4 books together and I'd have this weird conglomeration of, you know, the beginning of one and the ending of another. But my techniques book is probably the closest one I'll be finishing. I've got about another 50 and I'm done. And I'll see if I can publish that one, and then we'll present and we'll do that at the conference. And that's how we'll kickstart it. Because
we were, I was texting, I was like, I would read anything. I would read everything. And
I want to read it. I have country grammar. Okay. So I say,
maybe that's why we're identifying so Laura knows this story, but I spoke at a church. They'd asked me to come because they had taken up food and everything for for the people that were in need. And so that asked me to speak, and I asked them. I said, "Raise your hand if you grew up poor." And and these were folks older than I am. Shut up, Laura. And so a lot of the people I grew up poor. But did you have a clean? Did you come to school clean? Yes. Did you have food on the table, even if it was from your garden? Yes. So I think I said we're not really dealing with poverty. We're dealing with brokenness. I'm not your idea of giving food. I've got folks that won't even take the green beans and pop them and cook them. They need a pop-up can to use. So it's a different definition than most of the populace. If they're not in education, their definition of poverty is a whole lot different than what we see, I think.
I think so. I said I did one educational program for a group of educators in a small 2A school a couple of years ago. And I said, I can tell you the problem that I see with your school right now. And everybody is kind of silent. I said, how about everybody stand up? Let's take a field trip outside. And we walked outside, and I said, you see where you park? You see where your students park? That's the problem. Look at who's driving what. You got kids driving 2021 F-150 trucks at $85,000 a year, and mama's driving an 88 Impala that smokes and kills the mosquitoes in the area. Okay? That's the problem with our culture, is that we decided to give our children what we didn't have growing up, and we forgot to give them what we did have, which was discipline. My neighbors down the street let me drink out of their garden hose, but if I cut up, they would whip me and I'd get 2 more when I got home. And we're missing that generation of sitting on the front porch of grandmama shelling peas, like you mentioned. We're missing that knowledge. We're missing the knowledge of taking certain aspects out of our school system, like auto mechanics. I made sure my kids knew how to change a tire. They knew how to change the oil and do basic maintenance, on their vehicle. I said, you can pour Mountain Dew in the radiator and you can come home. Okay. Any liquid's good. Let's get home.
I just learned something.
It could have been alcohol. I don't know what they put. But who knows? They might have stood on the bumper. I don't know. But anyway, and the kids today are focused too much on, mama, you do this, daddy, you got to do this, and it's my entitlement. I'm like, it does you a disservice if Brent does everything for you. And even in counseling, I can't do it all for you. I need you to pick up what I'm laying down on the table. I need you to work with it. Now, I don't expect you to get it right, but I expect you to work on it. A lot of times I just put a big blob of clay and I said, I'm going to give you a lot of stuff to work with. And I expect that you're going to work with it, not just here in this session, but when you go home. And so I give them little pieces of clay, and then sometimes I'll add a different color. And I'll say, here's you another color now. I want you to add this to it. And they said, what am I doing? I said, whatever you want to do. It's about how you're going to mold who you are. I can't do this for you. I can give you the lottery numbers, but you actually have to go buy a ticket. And so when I get that conveyed across, there's a level of accomplishment when we leave our sessions, because it's not Brent giving you secrets and keys and things that are unlocking these hard spots in your life. You're the one that's going to have to unlock it. You're going to have to deal with this. I'm just going to be the guide along the way. That's what I'm going to do. But you got to be willing to walk with me. And I have a lot of people aren't willing to walk with me, and those people are absolutely insane. And
that's a lot of, I love your philosophy, and that has helped me tremendously, Laura. I just am hearing that you can, and I'm just going to do a Southern thing here. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And I think we as counselors put so much, and we deal with a lot of brand new counselors, and they put so much pressure. Especially in the area of if I miss something, a kid hurts himself. If I did not cross and I say, you do your due diligence, you do all you can, but we can't be there in their heads. They have to make choices. We're laying it down, like you said. They have to pick it up.
Well, it's like I told my kids growing up. I said, I can't watch you 24 hours a day. So when their senior year rolled around, we let them make a lot of independent decisions while we could still watch them. I need you to be able to come home at 2 or 3 in the morning and me know about it and be able to monitor you, and you have some backup in case you need it. And a lot of my friends thought I was nuts, thought I was giving permission to go rant and rave. I said, they were home by 12 o'clock. I mean, they hardly ever stayed out. But I was in a school, though, back before Christmas that I was allowed to go into. And I had this at the end of my workshop, this young girl came up to me and she says, hello, Mr. Brent, I will be the valedictorian of our school this year. I said, congratulations. She said, that's the biggest curse that's ever been put upon me. And she kept telling me about this perfectionist attitude that she had developed over the years. And she said, my mom and dad are divorced. They both have married people that I don't necessarily agree with, and they don't have my upbringing. She was raised a lot by her grandmother in between complications. And she said, and I was raised to go to church, and I was raised to do this, but my family, they're not attending. My step siblings are not attending. She said, I have pressure to be the top of my game, the swim meet champion. I have to do all the track meets, and I'm expected to be number one. She said, it is overwhelming and it is exhausted. And I think some days I'm just wanting to give up. And she was going through it after my suicide program, and she was like, I have thought a lot about it. And so I hear this type of thing a lot. And so my answer to her was real simple. I said, when the fire department goes out and they train, I said, they have to put 150 pounds of weight on their back and they have to run 5 miles. And they have to do it all within a certain time frame. And I said, your time frame was called 13 years from kindergarten to 12th grade. You had to complete and you had to succeed in each one of these areas, and they kept putting more weight on you. Okay? It's a lot of weight. I said, but here's the thing. At the end of the day, who is going to be stronger, the person that walks around with the weight or the person who doesn't? And that was the way I finished it. And she's like, well, Mr. Brent, I guess the one who carries the weight. I said, right, you've been carrying the weight and you're a stronger person. When you graduate, you're going to take a breath and you're going to breathe, and it's going to be only for you from this day forward. Nobody's going to expect you to win that race. Nobody's going to expect you to be the top of your class. You're going to be a little fish finally in a really big pond out there called life and college. And I want you to explore being the little fish. But you're going to be a little fish now in about 6 months. And I'm ready for you to be that, graduate and become that little fish again. And she was just absolutely standing there looking at me. And I said, here's my phone number, and you call me. And if you need further help, I'll make sure either I do it or I have some of my friends do it in counseling practices across the state. And she called me about a month later, and she says, I want you to know that 2021 is going to be a new year, and I am looking forward to being a little fish. And she had drawn me a picture of a little fish with her name on it, and she texted a picture of it and sent it to me. And I absolutely love it, because she kept thinking, I've got to be this big person for everybody, all this pressure. And I said, well, even a mountain makes a diamond every now and then out of pressure. So it just depends on how your focus is. And I do understand their situation. I understand a lot of kids' situations. They get into all this pressure, and a lot of it they bring on themselves. And I said, I can tell you a million stories about kids that get in trouble with the law and they have drug charges. And I said, look, I don't care about what you did. I only care about your very next decision, because that's going to make or break the rest of time here. You made a mistake. That's okay. You can be forgiven for that. But if you continue making the same mistakes, I call that choices. I care about what you do next. So if your next step is complying with the court system, doing what they ask you to do, and never repeating that same behavior that got you there, you and I are a success. Because it has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with houses and cars. Your success is your next step. What's going to be your next step, your next decision? That's success, because you can't take it with you. Although I did tell people that I told my wife, I said, when I die, I want you to put the U-Haul behind the hearse, and I want you to drive through town, because I want you to tell everybody I took it all with me. But anyway.
Well, it sounds like you give everybody perspective, and I think that is so important, because when you're in a situation like the girl that was valedictorian, all she could do was feel that pressure, and you gave her perspective to let her know this is temporary, and on the other side of this, it's going to be better. And I think that's huge, just to let them know it's going to be okay.
Oh, it's going to be fine. I said, I have probably more adults than kids that get overwhelmed. My private practice, it's amazing how we have stumbling blocks throughout our life. And sometimes it's one stumbling block that you don't seem to be able to pass. And it's interesting what those are as we go through. I understand teenage behavior. I get it. I live it every day. I can speak teenager. I don't speak child very well, but I speak teenager. They're all crazy. Every one of them. And I'm nuts. So, between the two, we all speak the same language. And it's not foreign either. It's a current language. But the stumbling blocks that people have in their life is helping them get past them. That's all it is. You can have a tiny crack in your life, or you can have a Grand Canyon in your life. But we're going to find a way to get the other side. And sometimes it's called a step. Sometimes it's called we got to get on a plane. Either way, we're going to get over it. And time really doesn't matter as long as we're successful. That's all that matters. But my counseling approach is a mixture. Everybody has cognitive behavioral. That's just a kind of a standard, but I do reality therapy. And that's what keeps me grounded and rooted to simple things. And let's solve the problem for today, and let's move forward. I can't fix the abuse of your past in the next 3 sessions. It's unrealistic. But what I can do is help you get over the hurdle that we're looking at right now. And sometimes I would actually take kids to the track and I'd have them jump hurdles. And we would label each hurdle with a different problem they were facing, from small to big as they're ranked. And I said, we will get to the large one. I promise you. But sometimes it takes a lot of visuals and a lot of metaphors and things to help our kids come on through the gap. We'll get there, though. Adults are no different.
And I think you're very gifted at that, and that may be your Southern heritage, because we're storytellers, and
That's it.
and we definitely make those analogies, and those, I think when you can paint a picture for a kid, because when you were doing the fireman toting, that I'm like, I will use that now from now on. That is such a great analogy. But I think you're very gifted in that, and it helps when we can. And when you get past the textbooks and you just speak, and I can hear those things that are so practical. And again, I attribute it probably to your storytelling Southern heritage, but you're good at bringing those analogies to make it so real.
Well, it's just finding out the child too, though. And I say child, I'm speaking of young adults and adults too. We have to find a way to communicate with them. And we all went through the personality inventories, and we all learn every different type. But everybody that does the counseling motif, at some point, you know how to read people. You know what to talk about, how to talk about, what tone. Best session I ever had in my life. I said I had to go do an evaluation at a school of this young man who was refusing to cooperate in class. and he was sent to alternative school. And I just sat with him. I said, are you ready to talk about, why you're here? And he says, I'm not going to tell you one blanking thing. I said, okay, fine. I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to play on my phone. And I just sat and played on the phone in an hour. I got up, I left. I said, I'll be back tomorrow. And I did this for 5 days in a row. And on the 5th day, he said, are you getting paid for this? I said, I'm getting paid for every minute of this. I said, so you keep your mouth shut and we'll have something good going. You don't do anything and I get paid. And he said, well, today I'm going to make you earn your blanking money. And I said, and I got mad. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I thought we had a deal. Telling me all these issues that were going on. And anyway, it's interesting how we don't have to be that you've got to tell me everything about you because I'm the counselor and you're the kid. Sometimes I need to give them 4 or 5 or 6 sessions just to let them be who they are. And I do crazy things like write treatment plans on decks of cards, and I write people's names and their families and girlfriends and boyfriends' names on cards. And when it comes to that card, we're going to talk about it. And we write down a list of rules. And so when we get to that card, I'm like, okay, I said, you got to tell me one thing that your boyfriend does that's awesome, and one thing that he does that's not so awesome you don't like. And just simple cards like that get these kids' brains detached for a moment from saying, I'm not telling Mr. Brent, but the rules of the game are this, so I'm going to have to play by the rules. And it just changes their whole perspective. And I get so much more information. I was just telling a social worker friend who's in school now, he said, what's the best thing I can do of being a social worker? And he was interviewing me for college. I said, do a very good assessment. Ask a lot of questions. Just don't say, does your mom and dad use drugs? Just say, well, how many people in your family would you think are addicted? The kid's not going to tell you that dad's using meth every day. But how many people you think in your family are using? And then he says, okay. I said, I have one tell me 5. How many people you think live in his household? 6, including him. He was the only one that didn't use. So you can find another way to ask a question that is non-threatening, but the assessment is probably the crucial piece to when you're dealing with young people. Talking around what you want to talk about. Instead of saying, do you have a girlfriend? You say, well, hey, I noticed that you were talking to so-and-so. Is that real? It's a different way to ask a question. And kids will talk. Oh, boy, they will talk. Just gotta give them the right question, I guess. But
I know what you're thinking, Laura.
What am I thinking?
We're going to speak about doing these assessments with students, and I knew you were thinking.
You're exactly right.
The questions that we ask and how important, and we're learning so much from you, and we're trying to figure this out ourselves because we're school counselors and we say we're not therapists, but we do want to know what's going on. And so we do minute meetings with students and we want to make sure that we're asking questions in a way that, like you were saying,
and sometimes you can do crazy things like, and I don't know why this makes a huge difference. It's a visual issue where I would cut different words out of a magazine to make a question, and I would glue it on a piece of paper or a strip, and then I would put all these questions in a bag, and then I would have the kid come in. I said, hey, you lead the session today. It's all about you. I said, go to the bag, and they would pull out a question, but because it was written, or it wasn't written, it was actually cutouts of a magazine in different colors and font styles. They were so less threatened by that because I've done it the other way where I'd type it out in these cool looking fonts, but the different fonts for each different word, for some reason, visually changed their whole outlook on how they answer that question. And so I would let them lead the session, and then they would ask me questions. They would pretend to be the counselor, that's one of my favorite sessions ever. I'm going to do that one Friday with a guy that I'm seeing got marital issues, and I'm going to do that with him. I'm going to say, it's your session. Ask me all you want to ask me. And what adults typically do is they'll say, so how would you solve the problem with your wife running around on you? And I said, oh, you asking me? How about ask me what I'd feel about that first? And then when they ask me how I feel about it, I'm like, okay, do you remember your vows? And I go back and have them repeat their vows. I said, welcome to the for worse part. Mm. For better is 99% of your time in your marriage, but you've got that 1% for worse, and you want to go ahead and go down with the ship because of the for worse. You have a vow on both ends. Let's uphold that on both ends. And let's start there. But I'll play where you're the counselor and I'm the client. And it's amazing how they empty a lot more emotionally from that perspective when it's reversed. It's kind of neat. But look here, I'm just nuts. Like I said, I get along with kids because they're crazy too. And we are. There's a lot that you can do in a minute. You mentioned the 1 minute thing. There's a lot you can do in a minute with a kid. And as a matter of fact, when I worked in a school setting, going to do assessments and counseling, I would tell them, I said, this is my 5-minute session. And what all can we accomplish and who can get accomplished the most today? I got to see 5 people. What all can we get accomplished? And we got to address these issues. And they would spit it out because it was quick. And it's just, sometimes it's that simple. Because kids, look here, when you were a kid and you were sitting in church, did you really enjoy an hour sermon or an hour and a half? You were Pentecostal, it was 3.
That's long.
I'm Pentecostal too, so I understand.
I hear you, but no.
Now, I grew up Baptist. I grew up Baptist, and I went to Baptist-Costical, and then I went to Pentecostal. Okay, but I didn't enjoy that experience. I love Sunday school because we were playing and we were moving and changing things. But church, my mama said, sit there and shut up. Well, that wasn't enjoyable for me. And you talked over my head with your Freudian biblical terms, and I didn't get it. But now, as an adult, I have to realize that child does not want to sit in my office for an hour. What are we going to do in an entire hour? But what if I tell them, hey, I need 15 hard minutes. Give me 15 minutes. And then for 15 more minutes, I'm either going to write some things down. I'm going to give you some activities to do while I observe you or some other things. And then I'll give them a task. And sometimes that's just me checking a goal saying that you're adhering to adult authority because I'm giving you something to do and you're doing it. And that's one of my goals. If I'm dealing with oppositionally defiant kids or ADD, things like that. And that's how I get through that 30-minute session because they're not going to sit there for 30 minutes. It's like asking a kid to tie their shoes for 30 minutes. That's ridiculous. They did it once. Let's move on. So,
I so need a book.
I do too.
Lord have mercy.
I need a
Look,
book.
I'll tell you what, if you all will help me finish the book, we'll co-author, ever how that works.
That would probably be good for us because Kim and I are kind of like squirrels too. So that would actually be good if we could all just share the weight together.
Well, the other book that I'm not close to finishing. I've only got about 3 chapters written. It's about grief and loss. When I lost my brother to cancer, that was almost 13 years ago, and I remember how horrific that felt. But I've got the cover already laid out. It's a picture of a dryer and one sock hanging out the door, and it says, "I'll find all my socks when I get to heaven." The goal is that we put things in and we invest in things, but sometimes it doesn't always come out. So it's about loss. And that's the best way I can figure out on how to do that. And the other book is How to Raise Your Children Like Your Dogs.
I don't know that that's good for me because I joke about putting a treat in the road for my dog.
That's good.
Call the HR.
Well, maybe not. Well, there again, it still fits the theme of the book. You take care of your animal loves you, looks forward to seeing you, they stay there. You mistreat that animal and you tie it to a tree and you give it restrictions and all these things, it's going to find a way to bolt when it gets a chance. And then if you go throw the treats out in the street, well, DHR shows up or the pet authority. I don't know. PETA might show up at your house. Or Rancorn.
Oh, listen, the way your brain works and the way you, I don't know, it's a Rick Bragg kind of thing, but your brain is a story. It's just, I could just see these stories coming from you and these analogies you make. And I know it's coming. We're going to be so excited for that. But you keep up the good work, what you're doing and speaking it sounds like you're helping so many people and going even beyond by what normal, which, you know, by giving them your number and all these brave things you're doing. But I tell you, that is to me, the scariest age to deal with. I have dealt with all of them, K through 12 in counseling. But when they get old enough to get away and do things, that is the scariest age, and that you are confident and can do it confidently and are making a difference. That's huge.
Hey, look, I love that out of control teenager. Don't give me a 5-year-old with ADHD. Give me the 15-year-old that's punching windows out and all that. I can handle that one.
Yeah, and I'm so glad.
Give me the mom that says, I don't know what to do anymore. I can handle that one too, because there's so much we can do. But a lot of our parents don't know what to do sometimes. Either their children are beyond their educational area, which is what I see a lot of times in some of our poor rural areas. The kids in the 8th grade, and mom can't help them with 8th grade, social studies or math because it's beyond them. And that's a stumbling point. So nothing like causing serious behavior in a classroom than when you feel like you're stupid. Mm-hmm. And I'll do everything I can do to call you every name I can call you for you to throw me out of the class. That way it's not my fault. I'm not stupid. You just threw me out of class. And but Lord, I'd love to come watch some of the classrooms. That'd be fun. Y'all need to invite me up to do some training for your staff and see if I can get.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Well, why don't we have listeners from all over the world. So why don't you tell our listeners what services you offer to schools and how they can contact you to come to their school?
Sure. We started doing things in schools about 16 years ago as a prevention method. And I cover probably about 65 different programs for schools and faculty. But the most popular have been bullying, substance abuse, and suicide prevention. Those are the 3 staples that continue to get requested. And there is no charge for during school hours, as long as my company allows me to travel to that area, wherever that area is. Typically, if it's north of Montgomery, they're going to want me to do 2 or 3 programs in a day, typically. So I might have to do 2 or 3 schools, or 2 at one school and another, or maybe a PTEA meeting or a PTO, whatever you call it, and faculty and students. And then if there's an overnight that's incurred, somebody usually raises a GoFundMe account and they pay for a hotel, and that works sometimes too. But if not, we work that out as well. We try to just help any way we can. But like I said, I'm located dead center bottom of Covington County. My phone number is 334-798-0076. And if anybody has questions at any point, whoever's listening to the podcast, give me a call anytime. Love to help answer some questions, especially if you're stuck. A lot of times we get stuck with working with a child or a group of kids, and we don't know what the next step should be or could be. So we explore some of that. And once we get through the exploration process, maybe that'll jumpstart that faculty member to saying, hey, by the way, that worked okay, or it didn't work at all. So I've heard both. But it's the main pretense is never giving up. If you go back to when you were first wanting to be an educator, why did you want to be an educator? Why did you want to become a school counselor? Why did you, that passion that you had to shift and change that generation? That's why I became a counselor. Like I said, I fought working with kids, but the passion fell on me to do it because I have an opportunity to take that person and that life and mold it so they don't have these problems as they become adults. So I'm that inner passion. Too many people, look, I asked my old high school teacher, I ain't gonna tell you where I went to high school. It was in Laverne, Alabama. But anyway, I asked my old English Lit teacher one day, I said, how many years have you been teaching English Lit? She says, I've been teaching English Lit for 34 years. I said, I have to correct you. You've taught 1 year 34 times. And she said, no, Mr. Cosby, I did not. I taught 34 unique, different years with my students. And she was correct. She's a phenomenal human being, one of my favorite people that I've ever had the privilege of knowing, because she made every year unique. You can only do so many Canterbury tales. Okay, yeah. It's one that April with the Shura Sutta. I mean, it's there and it's the same every year, but she made it unique and she had a passion for what she did up until the day she retired. That's who I want to be. And if I can't have that passion in what I'm doing, I'm going to Lowe's and I'm going to sell light bulbs and screwdrivers.
We are fans, and we've been on here an hour, Laura, and it just
We could go even longer.
I know it's just phenomenal. But you've made the mistake in giving us your telephone number.
I see a group text in our future.
Okay, all right.
Creepy old women will not leave me alone.
No, it's gonna be absolutely fine. You text anytime. You call anytime. That's what we do.
I do hope that we can see you, and we have said in your audience, but next time we're going to be like we're his friends. Scoot over. We're up front because
Look here. You get the head table. We're gonna put you at the head table. They allow me
that's what we want. That's what we want.
Okay.
The first two conferences that I attended, I'm overcoming a disorder. It's a door prize disorder. And it's where I cannot stand the thought of my name being called or being called out in a group. So imagine how I must have felt in your session when you're calling people out. But I endured because it was worth it. And so I've overcome this disorder. I'm working on it. So I feel
like, please call my name. Please call my name.
Just wait now. You have my number. I have your name.
Like
I'm going to draw door prizes out throughout. Laura's going to win every one of them. It'll be the joke of the week.
That's a therapy. Yeah, that'll do it.
That'll fix it. I said, it's kind of like if you grew up in a Pentecostal church, you were terrified that preacher's going to call your name.
That may be where it stemmed from, really. That may be it.
That's probably where it all stemmed from. See, it's rooted somewhere. Every behavior is rooted somewhere. So.
My dad was a pastor, though, so just imagine that. My dad, he was the one calling out the names. So, yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah, that's scary. Yeah.
Brent, thank you so much. Thank you, because I know your time is valuable. And listen,
hey, I'll send you that bill. It's fine.
You need to stand at your school system. I promise you, you will thank us. You will say, thank you. Or if he's any events that he could speak at. He is amazing and wonderful. And I promise you will be entertained and educated at the same time, which is what we always look for in a set. And those are rare. So
yes, they can be quite rare. I said I actually started speaking because I was tired of sitting in workshops where it was humdrum and boring, and I'm like, we have to have a little life and flavor, and I'm not anywhere remotely near. I wouldn't even say par, but I know a lot of people that are, and I like watching them because it energizes me to do what I do and continue moving forward. But someday it's a snail's pace. But hey, I'm moving forward. That's all.
Right. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you guys for having me.
To your future.
Hey, you guys have a great evening.
I love Brent Cosby.
I knew you would. That is why I insisted. Through your bad attitude, I insisted that you go hear him because I knew he is our people, and I knew you'd love him.
He's so practical. And I remember now it's all coming back, all the just everyday items that he uses to make sense. He's like a master storyteller. He's a master analogist. I mean, I remember that. It was just how he can make you understand your feelings or what you're going through by, some kind of story. What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing because he does what you and I can't ever do. Because you and I will be in a session and we're looking around the room like, well, he can grab an ink pen and talk about how that is, he makes it practical where you and I are like,
let's see, what do I have to help you?
It's like your problem is like a curtain and you're like,
and let me drag this curtain down off of the wall.
That caused many problems in my counseling practice.
Yes. And that's why we're not a real boy. We're not real therapists.
Very true.
We are school counselors, but we know a good therapist. But so many of his ideas, what's good for school counselors is that we do see students, we do advise, give them help, and we meet them, and they're going through different problems, and we're helping them cope. And so many of his things that I remember we got from his toolbox were just so practical for the school counselor, so that's what I really enjoyed. But getting to hear him on a personal, level was so neat. So Laura, I really was so serious when I said the reason I want, not because I really seriously, if he had books, I could revisit these Brent-isms, and I could revisit these practical things that he says, and that these tools that he uses, and that's, but I know he's got so many irons in the fire. And did you hear the level he goes to? I mean, it's seriously, his heart is to help others.
Right. Yeah.
And you could just tell that. So I really enjoyed having him on.
I did too. I was blown away. I was blown away when we heard him, but just getting to talk to him, it's like, I don't know. Like you said, he's so down to earth and just, puts it.
Yes, and I do want to meet him. I did not ask him. I know we'll be going to Las Vegas to a conference. I meant to ask him if he would be in Vegas, but then to warn him that we're as much fun as an Amish prom, as wild as an Amish prom.
That you nailed it.
It would be like 7 o'clock.
You nailed it. And people have talked about how excited they are to see us, and I'm like, you need to understand that this one, and I'm talking about you, Kim.
I know, because who else is here, Laura?
Well, that's true. But you are asleep. Like right now, it is the afternoon, and I can tell you are fading on me.
Oh.
By 6 p.m., if you're not in the bed, then you're not a barrel of monkeys.
But the sun does not beat me up. Benjamin Franklin said, don't let the sun beat you up. I think it was worded a little different.
That is not as eloquent as I would like to think that Benjamin Franklin
said it eloquently, but So
I cannot even imagine us. I can't imagine us in Vegas because,
well,
the Amish prom.
I stayed up to watch Barry Manilow last year in Vegas. And beat me and Barry. Let me just say, me and Barry are past our prime.
And that show was at 4 p.m.
That was the 4 p.m. show, and Barry and I were both done in.
I will never, never forget making you take a nap when we went to Boston, and I'm a nap taker, and I insisted on us taking a nap. And you do not bounce back. You give me a good hour nap, and I'm good until 2 a.m. To play board games. That's about all I do. But I
cannot take a nap. And then when I wake up, it is like I'm still in REM 3. And
I took you down to a meet and greet, and it was like weekend at Bernie's.
You were dragging me, and it was like I was having an out-of-body experience. It was
the looks we were getting. I don't know if it's because of our accent. I don't know if it's because of the stupid things we were saying, or if it was because you were draped with your bedspread over your head. I don't know.
I was floating up above, looking down on everybody because I was still in my Dreamweaver stage.
I kept poking you like,
never do that to me again. I just have a vague remembrance of waking up at Cheesecake Factory.
We had to abandon the party because you were such an embarrassment to me, and we went to Cheesecake.
No, you need to eat and you'll wake up, and I could not wake up.
Yeah, because I thought, well, we'll go back to the meet and greet after you've had a little sustenance.
No, don't make me take naps, because that's not going to work. That does not work with me.
So
never has, never will.
Vegas ought to be a real riot.
Oh, it's going to be a hoot.
So any meet and greet that we have will have to be at 4 p.m. But then you guys can go enjoy your nightlife. We'll go back to our room.
I will
Huh?
drink a Red Bull and we can put it off till 5. I will drink a Red Bull and we'll put it off till 5. And I don't know if Wayne Newton is still performing. I don't even know if he's still living. I don't know. But I do need a good Vegas show. So I will have to stay up at least 2 nights.
Oh, you are a good Vegas show. With a Red Bull at 5 p.m. That is a good Vegas show.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just so happy after Brent makes me happy because he's so optimistic and it just oozes out of him. So I'm just going to have a good afternoon to this afternoon.
Yes, we'll have to have him back on. He was a wealth of information and stories. There's a lot more to unpack there, I think.
I felt like there was a lot of unpacking, but my HelloFresh is here, and you know what that means. It's days late. HelloFresh could not make it due to the blizzard conditions, which was a dusting of snow. So HelloFresh is 2 days late, and I don't know. Maybe
Hello, not so fresh. How about that?
It's like, hello, whenever you got here. So it's, I don't know. I call it kind of fresh. So I'm going to go in there and make my Hello Was Fresh.
You guys can find us on Facebook as Counselor Accents. You can join our Facebook group, the Counselor Accents group. You can follow us on Instagram, and you can like and subscribe to this podcast so that you can hear us more frequently and get a notification when we release a new episode.
And Brent and I have already started texting.
Oh, please add me.
Don't be jelly. I'm just texting one. And it was in a hey, what are you doing? And after henceforth, he's going to say, I used to give my number out. Bye-bye.
Your accents, gals.
Again, I got to go fix kind of fresh.
Then quit talking.
Bye-bye.